welcome to this deep dive. We've put together something really special just for you today. And I'm going to start by asking you a question.
Oh, jumping right in.
Jumping right in.
Yeah.
And I want you to be completely honest here. Have you ever woken up, looked down at your wrist, and just felt like your smartwatch was actively judging you?
I think we all know that exact feeling.
Right. You know the feeling.
Yeah.
You open your eyes, you feel completely exhausted, like you wrestled a bear all night.
Yeah.
But there's this little glowing screen cheerfully congratulating you for getting a perfect 8 hours of rest.
Or the exact opposite happens. You actually feel okay, but your watch is flashing these angry red numbers, basically telling you your sleep was an unmitigated disaster.
Exactly. It's this bizarre modern frustration. We strap these incredibly advanced computers to our bodies, and yet half the time it feels like they don't actually understand human physiology at all.
It's a very common frustration, and it really points to a much larger issue in how these devices are designed from the ground up. I mean, the sensor technology has become incredibly sophisticated over the last decade.
Oh, absolutely.
But the baseline assumptions that are feeding the algorithms built into that technology, they can be surprisingly narrow. They often just assume this very rigid, one-size-fits-all model of human rest.
And that disconnect is the core of what we're exploring today. We're pulling insights from a fantastic tech discussion called Precision Sleep Tracking, the Samsung Galaxy Watch 8 analysis.
From the folks over at Tech and Tonic.
Right, featuring commentators from Tech and Tonic. And during their discussion, they heavily reference a recent massive review published by the team over at Android Authority.
Which is a great source. The Android Authority review is particularly useful context here because they don't just regurgitate the manufacturer's press release.
Yeah, they actually dig in.
They get into the granular technical realities of both the hardware and the software. They're out there testing these consumer devices against clinical reference monitors.
And dedicated sleep tracking rings.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Just to see how the algorithms actually perform under rigorous daily testing.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack a massive, glaring blind spot in the wearable industry, specifically around sleep tracking. We're going to examine whether the new Samsung Galaxy Watch 8 has actually managed to solve a major problem for people who simply do not fit the mold of a perfect sleeper.
It's a big promise to live up to.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this.
So to really appreciate what is happening with this new device, we first have to understand the baseline problem with the wearable industry as a whole.
The foundation.
Yeah. And it essentially boils down to a profound misunderstanding of what sleep actually looks like for a huge portion of the population.
The commentators at Tech and Tonic made a brilliant point about smartwatch marketing here. If you watch the commercials for almost any major fitness tracker, they all operate on this simplistic, almost cartoonish assumption.
The marathon runner assumption.
Exactly. The marketing myth goes like this.
Yeah.
You get into bed, you close your eyes, you instantly fall asleep for a solid, unbroken 8 hours.
And then you wake up absolutely energized.
Right. The people in these ads are always lacing up their running shoes at 5:30 in the morning with this massive smile on their face. It's ridiculous.
What's fascinating here is how that aspirational marketing completely ignores the reality for millions of people. The Tech and Tonic discussion specifically highlights a demographic that is rarely discussed in tech keynotes.
Which is so frustrating.
It is. We're talking about people dealing with chronic pain or conditions like fibromyalgia. For these individuals, the idea of just closing your eyes and instantly achieving 8 hours of perfect, uninterrupted rest is
Like a total fantasy.
a complete fantasy. For them, sleep is often described as a battleground.
A battleground. That paints such a vivid picture of the struggle, you know?
Yeah.
If you're dealing with chronic pain, you aren't just lying peacefully in deep REM sleep.
No, not at all.
You're tossing, turning, waking up in discomfort. You're trying to find a position that hurts just a little bit less. Your nervous system is constantly firing, just trying to manage those pain signals.
And we know that older wearables, and frankly, a lot of the current competing watches out there, they fail spectacularly at capturing this reality.
Because they rely so heavily on simple actigraphy, right?
Yes. Just using basic accelerometers to track motion.
I think most of us who follow tech know that using basic motion tracking is incredibly flawed.
Yeah.
But how does it specifically fail this demographic when it comes to their daily health metrics?
It fails because the algorithm makes a binary assumption based on very limited data. Historically, the logic has just been, if there is movement, the user is awake.
Right.
And if there is a lack of movement, the user must be asleep.
Which is just wild when you think about it.
It's a huge oversimplification. And for someone with a chronic condition, it actually actively works against them. It ends up misinterpreting their coping mechanisms.
Which then throws off every other metric the watch calculates.
Yeah, exactly. Think about it. Most modern wearables give you some sort of readiness or recovery score each morning.
Yeah, it's telling you how much activity you should take on that day.
Right. And if the watch uses a binary motion algorithm, it completely botches that score.
The Android Authority review dives into the consequence of this,
Yeah.
which they actually call the penalty for resting.
The penalty for resting. It's such an accurate phrase.
It really is. Think about, say, a Tuesday afternoon. If you have fibromyalgia, there are going to be times during the day when you just need to lie down to manage a flare-up.
You aren't sleeping.
No, you're fully conscious. You might be staring at the ceiling, watching television, or just trying to manage your pain levels by staying as physically still as possible on the couch.
But because you're lying still, those legacy motion sensors register a lack of movement. So the baseline algorithm kicks in, it sees the lack of accelerometer data, and it records that period as a nap.
Or even deep sleep.
Exactly.
You checked your data at the end of the week, and your watch is telling you that you slept for 12 hours on Tuesday.
Meanwhile, you know for a fact that you were awake, in pain, simply trying to get through the afternoon.
The watch is giving you completely inaccurate data because it fundamentally fails to understand the difference between conscious rest and actual unconscious sleep.
And it's a critical distinction to make. Conscious rest is a necessary strategy for managing chronic conditions. When a health device misinterprets that coping mechanism as sleep, it creates a massive disconnect.
Between what the person is physically experiencing and what the objective data is reporting.
Exactly. I mean, you buy a health tracker to understand your body better, not to be told that your painful flare-up was a delightful afternoon nap.
Which perfectly brings us to the hardware at the center of the Android Authority deep dive.
Yeah.
The Samsung Galaxy Watch 8.
This device is generating a lot of conversation right now, specifically because it appears to be tackling these exact algorithmic flaws.
It's being heralded in these tech circles as potentially the very first mainstream smartwatch to actually get sleep tracking right for non-traditional sleepers.
And mainstream is the key word to focus on there.
All right, we aren't talking about a hyper-specialized $1,000 medical array that's only used in clinical sleep labs.
No, we're talking about a consumer smartwatch you can literally buy at any electronics store.
That is a massive milestone. The Android Authority piece breaks down two specific, major technical fixes that Samsung has implemented here.
Let's get into those.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The first major advancement is its ability to track what they call micro-awakenings. But I have to be honest, I'm a bit skeptical here.
Okay, why is that?
Well, how does a wrist wearable actually measure a micro-awakening accurately without a full EEG attached to your head?
It is a great question, and it really comes down to moving beyond just the accelerometer. To measure a micro-awakening, the Watch 8 is utilizing a multi-sensor array.
Okay.
And it's feeding that data into much more complex AI pattern recognition models. See, when you're in pain, your sleep architecture isn't a smooth curve. It's highly fragmented.
Right.
You might not fully open your eyes or sit up in bed, but your brain and body experience a momentary wakefulness.
You shift your weight, wince, and drift back down.
Precisely. To catch that, the watch is looking at a combination of continuous heart rate variability, or HRV,
Okay, HRV.
plus microfluctuations in blood oxygen levels and skin temperature. When a pain spike causes a micro-awakening, your sympathetic nervous system activates.
Ah, so there's a momentary spike in heart rate.
Yes, a spike in heart rate, a drop in HRV, and subtle shifts in your peripheral temperature. The Watch 8's bioactive sensor is sampling this data at a high enough frequency to catch those momentary autonomic nervous system responses.
Even if your arm barely moved.
Even if you were completely still.
Wow. So it's looking much closer at the physiological reality. It's basically seeing the chaos within the stillness.
That's a great way to put it.
For someone with a chronic condition, to finally look at a sleep graph in the morning and see those micro-awakenings recorded, to see the data actually reflect the restless night they know they just experienced.
That has to be incredibly validating.
It really does.
It replaces that feeling of being misunderstood by the device with a feeling of accuracy. It allows the user to make better, more informed decisions.
Because if you know you had 30 micro-awakenings, you finally understand why you feel so fatigued.
Exactly. Even if you were technically in bed for 8 hours, you aren't left wondering why you feel terrible despite the watch previously insisting you had a quote-unquote perfect night.
Okay, so that covers the micro-awakenings, which is clearly a huge leap in sensor utilization. The second technical breakthrough that Tech and Tonic discussed directly addresses that resting penalty we were talking about earlier.
Right, the couch versus nap dilemma.
Yes, the Galaxy Watch 8 algorithm apparently no longer confuses simply sitting on the couch with taking a nap. How did they solve that, technically speaking?
It represents a significant leap forward in differentiating conscious relaxation from unconscious sleep, and it goes right back to how the device utilizes heart rate variability and breathing patterns.
How so?
Well, when you're awake but lying perfectly still on the couch, your autonomic nervous system behaves differently than when you actually transition into the early stages of sleep.
So your breathing rate might be slow because you're resting, but it doesn't have the specific rhythmic signature of someone who's actually drifted off.
Exactly that. The AI models have been trained to recognize the specific physiological signatures of sleep onset.
Like the slight drop in core temperature.
Yes, the temperature drop, the specific stabilization of the respiratory rate, and that shift in resting heart rate. By requiring those specific biological markers to align, rather than just waiting for the accelerometer to stop detecting movement, the watch actually understands context.
Context is everything. So if you're having a flare-up and you need to lie perfectly still on the couch for 2 hours to manage it, the watch finally understands what's happening.
It sees that your body is still, it registers your heart rate, but it knows your central nervous system is still awake.
It doesn't log a 2-hour nap.
Nope. And it doesn't skew your recovery metrics for the entire week. It finally eliminates that resting penalty.
The technology is attempting to understand the context of the user's behavior. This is what nuanced, advanced health monitoring actually looks like when you move beyond basic step counting and actigraphy.
It is.
It feels like a massive step forward for anyone who has ever felt their wearable was just randomly guessing. But as we know from following the tech industry, nothing is ever absolutely flawless.
There's always a catch.
Always. There's always a catch.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is crucial to temper our expectations here. While the sleep tracking advancements in the Galaxy Watch 8 are undeniably a huge step forward, the reviewers at Android Authority and the commentators at Tech and Tonic are very clear that there are significant compromises.
Yeah, you have to accept certain limitations to get access to this level of tracking.
Right. The review explicitly details two major drawbacks.
The first one is a structural issue with the industry right now, which is the Samsung lock-in. To get these absolute best-in-class features, you are essentially tethered to the Samsung ecosystem.
And that is a huge ask for a lot of consumers.
Massive.
Ecosystem lock-in is an incredibly common strategy, obviously, but it becomes particularly restrictive when we are dealing with personal health data. What this means in practice is that to utilize the Watch 8 to its fullest potential,
Get all those nuanced insights into micro-awakenings and the rest detection.
right. To get all of that, you really need to pair it with a Samsung smartphone and use Samsung's proprietary health applications.
It's the classic walled garden. If you're an iPhone user, it's basically a non-starter.
Completely.
But even if you use a different brand of Android phone, like, say, a Google Pixel or a Motorola, you're still going to hit roadblocks.
Because Samsung limits certain advanced tracking features like the ECG or irregular heart rhythm notifications exclusively to their own phones.
Right. Furthermore, getting that highly nuanced sleep data to sync cleanly via APIs with third-party health apps you might already use and prefer.
Can be an absolute headache.
Total headache. It forces a very difficult decision on the consumer.
It really does. You find a tool that finally understands the nuances of your physical reality, but to use it seamlessly, you might have to replace your smartphone and migrate your entire digital life over to a single brand.
It places an artificial corporate barrier between the user and the health tracking they actually need. You're forced to choose between the hardware you need for your body and the digital ecosystem you prefer for your daily life.
Which is never a fun choice.
No. And then there is the second major hurdle Android Authority discussed, which feels like the punchline to a very cool tech joke.
The battery life.
The battery life. We're talking about all these incredible sleep tracking features, all this continuous multi-sensor overnight data collection. And yet the battery life is still just a standard smartwatch battery.
It highlights a fundamental physical tension in modern wearable design right now. You have this device packed with advanced bioactive sensors.
Yeah.
It's constantly calculating complex AI algorithms to distinguish couch rest from napping. And it is continuously monitoring heart rate variability and blood oxygen for micro-awakenings throughout the night.
And tracking blood oxygen alone is a massive power draw.
Huge, because it requires firing the LED sensors on the back of the watch constantly. All of that continuous processing and sensor activity requires a tremendous amount of energy.
Which brings us to the dreaded charger shuffle.
The charger shuffle.
It is the ultimate irony of the modern sleep tracker. You need to wear the device all night long to get this life-changing data about your sleep quality.
But because it's a full-featured smartwatch with a bright OLED screen, constant GPS connectivity, and these heavily taxing sensors.
It's burning through its roughly 400 milliamp hour battery all day long.
So when do you actually charge it?
Exactly. If you leave it on the nightstand while you sleep, you miss the advanced tracking, which is the entire reason you bought this specific model in the first place.
And if you charge it during the day, you have to find a window of time where you are okay with not tracking your steps, your heart rate, or missing your notifications.
You're constantly doing battery math in your head. Like, okay, if I put it on the charger while I'm in the shower and then maybe top it off while I'm sitting at my desk answering emails, it might just have enough juice to make it through the night.
It creates this low-level anxiety that completely undercuts the passive convenience of having a wearable in the first place.
Yeah, it forces the user to actively manage the device's survival rather than the device seamlessly integrating into the background of the user's life.
It is a stark reminder that technological progress is rarely a straight line. We managed to solve a highly complex software and sensor problem, like algorithmic bias against non-traditional sleepers, only to run face first into the stubborn physical realities of lithium-ion battery chemistry.
It's always something. So what does this all mean? When we look at all of this together, the simplistic marketing myths, the daily reality of chronic pain, the impressive technical fixes with micro-awakenings, and the very real compromises regarding ecosystems and batteries, why should you care about the Galaxy Watch 8?
It's a valid question.
Even if you don't personally suffer from fibromyalgia or a similar condition, this discussion matters because it represents a massive philosophical shift in wearable tech. For years, these devices have been almost exclusively focused on aspirational fitness tracking.
Built for the marathon runners.
Exactly. The people trying to optimize their VO2 max. But this watch represents a shift toward realistic, highly nuanced health monitoring. It's consumer technology finally learning to accommodate complex chronic conditions rather than just ignoring them.
So what insight here is that true technological advancement isn't just about generating a higher volume of data or building sharper screens. It's about building technology that accurately reflects your lived reality. When a device relies on a generic, one-size-fits-all algorithm, it fundamentally fails the people who need health tracking the most. Knowledge is only powerful when it is rooted in reality.
Right.
By finally utilizing multi-sensor arrays to recognize the fragmented, complex nature of real-world sleep, this device is acknowledging that human bodies are messy, unpredictable, and rarely fit into a perfect, neat marketing narrative.
It is a massive step forward in how sensors interpret our biology, and it leaves us with a really fascinating thought to carry forward. We've seen how much engineering effort, sensor fusion, and AI training it took for a mainstream smartwatch to finally learn to distinguish between someone simply resting quietly on a couch and someone actually falling asleep.
It took years to get that algorithmic context right.
Years. So if our devices are finally learning to see these subtle physiological differences, what other invisible physical or mental states might our everyday wearables soon learn to recognize and validate?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Right. Will they be able to accurately track the physiological onset of a panic attack before it fully hits?
Or measure cognitive fatigue as accurately as they measure physical exhaustion.
Exactly. The door has been opened just a crack. And the possibilities for truly personalized, context-aware health tech are suddenly endless.
It's going to be a fascinating space to watch.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We loved unpacking these sources with you, and we look forward to doing it again soon. Take care.